Today I'm here with Peter Espig, the CEO of Nicola Mining. Peter, can you briefly describe yourself and your company?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. So I am the CEO of Nicola Mining. I've been the CEO for just over 3 years. And I think for myself, this has been it's been a great experience. It's not always been an easy one, but for myself, it's essentially a real full circle in my career, because I started out when I was a young student living in Kamloops, BC. I was a diamond driller, and I drilled all through university. I worked on the drilling rigs in northern Canada, Yukon, northern British Columbia, Northwest Territories for 8 years, and then went on and graduated from University of British Columbia, and then worked in Japan, and did my MBA at Columbia University and entered the world of finance. And so my background is distress turnaround. I had worked at some very good firms that were able to, I had good mentors, Olympus Capital, Goldman Sachs, Shinsei Bank, and now I've taken over this project, and we've got a really good team. My CFO, Warwick Bay, is also an experienced mining person, and we're managing Nicola Mining, and we think it's a very exciting project, because right now we're a hybrid, and we have operating cash flow. Over the past month, or the previous month, we processed just over 700 ounces of gold and 5,000 ounces of silver. So we have an operating business, and yet at the same time we have exploration upside, and we are the site itself. So we have Treasure Mountain, and we also have the Nicola mine site, which is the old Craigmont mine. And the Craigmont mine is the old, it was the highest grade copper mine in the history of North America, and so, or open pit copper mine, and we're on the Guichon batholith, which is one of the best neighborhoods you could essentially think of as a copper miner. So that's really where we are right now.
Cool. So Nicola has recently received shipment and payment for 190 dry metric tons of concentrate from your mill. I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Can you go into detail about the current milling contracts that you have?
Yeah, we have 5 milling contracts right now, and so I think the way to think of what we have. So Nicola is in we're called Nicola Mining because we're in the Nicola region. The Nicola region is just outside of Merritt, British Columbia, which is central in British Columbia. And we have a very unique platform because, first of all, we own all the land. As far as I know, we're the only mine in British Columbia that has a mill site that is fully owned by the company. We're industrial zoned, I3 industrial zone, and second is that people know it's becoming increasingly difficult to get a mill permit in British Columbia. So the mine permit is easier to get than the mill permit, because it's the mill permit where you have the processing and the waste and the disposal. So what we have is we're situated on essentially 1,000 acres of brownfield ground that has been processed twice, once from the former copper mine and then from the magnetite operations, because there was a magnetite mine there. So the way to think of it is that we're like an airport, and small mining projects are like airplanes, and they need a place to land. So they fly their gold into us.
Can you talk about the Thule copper project that you guys have, and if there are any recent developments?
Yeah, the Thule copper project is, we look at it as an elephant, and we know we have something special. We just don't know how big it will be, but we know it's very exciting. So just to put it, give a little background explanation, is the Craigmont mine so we are beside Highland Valley Copper, which is Teck Resources' largest mine in North America. So the Highland Valley Copper project is one of the largest copper projects in the world. It's the largest mine in Canada. But the first mine on that region, on the batholith, was on our side. which is on our property, which is the old Craigmont mine. And the old Craigmont mine, which is on the Goujon batholith, had an average cutoff, had a grade of 1.28% in the open pit, and then closer to 2% in the underground. So it's a very, very high grade copper skarn. We knew we had that, the pit, and we have the waste dumps, but more importantly, we had a geologist who knew that, because what happened with the fault in the batholith is that the batholith moved exactly 2.9 kilometers. And we know that because Highland Valley has spent close to $60 million on drilling on its side. And so when you have a fault that moves 2.9 kilometers, then you know that that would be the same on our side. That was very significant because in the old pit, the Craigmont pit, what happened is the mineralization was cut in the middle of the pit. So the one side had a very, very high mineralization, and then you could think of not half, but 1/3 of the pit having almost no mineralization, because the fault cut through it and it essentially moved northwards. We know that the fault moved exactly 2.9 kilometers. And so, on a very limited budget, we did 5 drill holes this year, and actually really 4 drill holes, because one was a re-drill. And so we did the 4 drill holes. We hit copper on all the drill holes, but the one hole that we were really targeting, which was the embayment zone, we hit 87 meters grading 1.1% copper, which is the best grade in recent years in North America. So this is something that we're extremely excited about, and we also know we do have information on what the electromagnetic imprint of that is. So we have an idea of where we're going to be drilling to expand it, and on a very limited budget, because it's very tightly confined within the faults, that we'll be able to prove up a resource. And this is, grade is very, very exciting. To put it in perspective, the copper mine beside us is mining at grades of 0.2%, and our grade is 1.1%. So that's very significant. And then the other thing is the Titan Queen, which we were very excited about, and I think our geologist is equally excited about the Titan Queen as he is about the embayment zone, is that the type of mineralization is a porphyry type of driver. And so you have the embayment zone is what's a skarn, and the skarn is an offshoot of a much larger ore body. And the embayment zone is porphyry type, the Titan Queen is porphyritic type of mineralization. So what that means is it's a big body. We don't know if it's going to be economical, but what we do know is that the grades that we had on top are 1%. So there is an indication that we could have something that is very big and has grade, and that's really exciting, and we're close to. So as we speak right now, we're arranging to get the IP survey done over the Titan Queen, and we're also going to map the Titan Queen to get ready for next year.
Okay, great. How can investors interpret your recent news release regarding the exploration and material purchase agreement?
Yeah, this is something that we've been actually working on for 2 years. And what it is we were approached by a geologist from Teck Resources, which is Canada's largest mining company, and he was intrigued or interested in our waste dumps. And so what we started looking at is we realized that within the waste dumps, because the historic cutoff grade, Craigmont closed in 1988, and at that time and throughout the history of the mine itself, the cutoff grade was 0.7% or higher. So and how did they know it was 0.7% or higher or 1% or higher? It basically by visual. So they because they were going downwards, and it was separated into piles. And so we know that from the 80 to 90 million tons of waste dumps or historical stockpiles that we have, that a significant portion of that is of economic grade to Highland Valley Copper, which is adjacent to us. So we started exploring down the path and negotiating on, because remember that if you're mining 0.2% copper and you're milling it, and Highland Valley's mill is close, I think it's 180,000 ton a day mill. Well, they're currently mining and milling about 128,000. So there is room to put more throughput. But the key point here is that if you're mining 0.2% copper, that means you're paying for the mining, the engineers, and the transportation and the milling. Well, ours is in piles, so there are no mining costs. So it really lowers the cost of, really what you're looking at is loading and transportation and milling.
Okay. You also have an aggregate property which you reportedly received an offer of 1.125 million for 50% ownership, which you will close after you have the permit amendment. So how far along are you on the permit amendment, and when do you expect to complete the sale of this gravel property?
So the gravel pit itself, so we have a gravel pit on our site, and that gravel pit, with the gravel pit we've received cash flow from that gravel pit for the past 3 years, and it's a royalty, so we receive a royalty on that. We have sold 50% of that gravel pit to a group that is specialized in soil relocation. And soil relocation, what we're focusing on is soils that are, for example, salt contaminated, and we're also we have another contract which I'll get in a little bit about with fly ash. But the group that has put the price, they've already paid us $175,000 as the down payment. It's a non-refundable deposit, and we've used those funds to do an environmental impact study, a mine closure plan, and the key point to remember here is that we own the land. So this is not crown land. This is land owned by us that is disfigured because there's been 2 types of mining and milling that have occurred on that property. So what we're looking at doing is we're looking at bringing in soils locally and bringing in soils from construction sites to put on top of the tailings. So the tailings is like the old material from the old mine, and use that soil as reclamation. And so this is something that we did that is very creative, because it helps the local environment in that you're getting rid of a dust issue. It helps us because we're getting paid for every ton that comes onto our property. And we have a partner on the gravel because when material comes to our site, they'll load it down. We can put sand on top of it, and because under the rules of the Ministry of Environment, they would like to have 1.5 meters approximately of soil on top of our tailings. So we'll place it on top, and then in the end we can seed it. So what we'll do is we hope to start the soil process next spring. We're right at the point of where we're submitting all the required documents right now, and that includes several different types of studies, a dust monitoring study. We've got a mine closure plan, a soil plan that talks about the soil business itself. These are all submitted to the Ministry of Mining and the Ministry of Environment. We also have another contract which we expect to start in November, and that's for receiving fly ash, because the City of Merritt has a new green energy plant, which is a joint venture between Veolia and which is in Merritt, and the Lower Nickel Indian Band is also somewhat active in that, and with contracts, with service contracts, and so that's something. What we will be doing is they're burning pine kill trees, and there's ash left over, which becomes carbon, and carbon is is fertile. So we're putting the carbon on our soil, and then we're blending it with sand, and then we're seeding it. So that's something that will start, we're hopefully it will start in November, so in a month. And we've already submitted we're in the process, of submitting that documentation right now to the ministry for the pilot study. And I can't talk about the economic terms of that because we're under a NDA at this stage, but the economic terms of that will come out when we start the business itself. So that's something, stay tuned for.
Okay, cool. And are there any current cash flows on this property?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the gravel pit provides us cash flows, and we expect to start receiving cash flows in November on the fly ash material.
Okay. And can you talk about Treasure Mountain?
Treasure Mountain is and Nicola Mining is the old Huldra Silver. So Huldra Silver, we did a name change because the old legacy, to get rid of the legacy, also to honor the fact that we're in the Nicola region. But Treasure Mountain is a high-grade silver property that we own 100%. And what we've done is we've closed it, we've put it under care and maintenance, but there's, in level 1 stope 2, we have 14,000 tons remaining within that level 1 stope 2 that contains a 4310 compliant 430,000 ounces of silver. The cost of mining that, because close to 70% of the costs of mining it have already been incurred, because the raises, we needed 11 raises, 8 are complete. So from the 11 raises, 8 are complete. The estimated cost of extracting the 430,000 ounces is $450,000. The cost of trucking it to our site is approximately $300,000, and then there's just the milling cost. And we already have a contract in place for that material. And so what we've been doing is that we've just been waiting for silver to get to the right price, because there's no point depleting our resource when we can have cash revenue flows from other mine site gold material, mill feed. But what we do have planned is that if silver goes above $23, that we will reopen Treasure Mountain.
And can you tell us what the near-term and long-term goals for the company are?
I think the near-term goals are to execute on the partnership with Teck Highland Valley Partners, and to complete the exploration drilling on the waste dumps. Another near-term goal will be to make sure that we can focus on getting steady mill feed supply, because we have contracts in place, and we're looking at doing a long-term contract. We're in negotiations with that contract right now, but what we want is a steady flow for the mill, and then the drilling program. So those are really the 3 near-term goals.
And any long-term goals?
The long-term goals obviously is to maximize shareholder value. So my fiduciary duty as a CEO is to execute on our goals, our milestones, and also to maximize shareholder value. So it's difficult to say what is a long-term goal, because, and I have to emphasize, because we believe we have something very special in Thule copper, and that, I think that was, the market believes that as well. That's why we traded so heavily after the drill results. So I think what we need to do is for me to say, this is a long-term goal right now, would be getting ahead of myself, because you walk before you run. And I think that after the drill program next year, I certainly think that, if we talk this time in a year from now, I'll certainly have a clearer vision of the long-term goal. But I think that long-term goal is going to be you know, influenced by the drilling results next year, which we are very confident are going to be exceptional.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to do today's interview, Peter. And do you have any closing remarks you'd like to leave investors with?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I would just say that I think Nicola Mining is a very unique company. We have assets that are revenue drivers. We are a junior mining company that already has operating revenue. We've had positive cash flows over the past couple months. So we've just entered that phase. Hopefully it continues. And we have a silver mine that is fully permitted that we can reopen next year if the silver prices are right. And we have Thule Copper that gives shareholders, aside from the cash flow, we have Thule Copper that will provide cash flow from the waste dumps, but more importantly will provide exploration upside. But you have to understand that this is exploration upside, not on an exploration property. This is a mine site. So we're fully permanent. So when we prove it up, we can mine it. And that's very different than most of these exploration plays. So I think we're a very unique company that has a very bright future.
Thank you.
Thanks.